Good evening, everyone. Yes, it's nice to see you. Nice to see you all. It's good to see some new faces in the room. That's kind of nice. So welcome. Welcome. I just want to offer a big thank you to everyone offering your generous and ongoing contributions. That's very helpful for me and keeping this free and available to anyone who wants to join. So thank you for those. So I've had a number of things that have been posting on Facebook in the last couple months, just questions for you all to sit with, to inquire into. And so I encourage you to look at those, questions. You know, last week the question was, what trance am I in? What trance? We can get lost in all types of trances in this world. It's a very, very common thing. As we get into the political season, that's going to be a big trance. A big trance. We are all, working with the coronavirus trance right now, which has been a really bizarre one. I took my my 5-year-old daughter, I guess 6-year-old daughter, up to the park. We stopped at a friend's house to see if another little girl wanted to play. And she told me her mom was sick. And so right away I went into this thought, oh my God, she has the coronavirus. And then I started looking at this little girl who's so sweet. Like, do you have the coronavirus? Are you going to give it to, to my daughter, Ani, and then to my family? And should I be nervous? And, I had to sit with it a little bit. And then I asked, her husband, how's your wife doing? He's like, oh yeah, she's sick. I was like, well, does she have the coronavirus? And then, when I asked, questioned a little bit more, it was, it's 100 degrees out, Craig. She's sick of the heat. She's having a rest. She's having some mommy time, some alone time. And we have to be careful. We have to be careful with our minds, because that's part of the trance we live in, is we have this mind that so quickly jumps to conclusions. A lot of people email me these worst case scenarios about, anything spiritually related, kundalini related. And, a lot of times, I just offer very basic advice. Hey, let's get out of the future. Let's get out of imagining the worst thing is going to happen. And let's stay in reality. Let's all stay in reality. And that's what the world needs right now, is for us to stay in reality. Now, Justina, she wrote, something quite beautiful about her experience. With the inquiry questions of what trance she's in. And, she went on to say that she's lived in or under the trance of unworthiness for many years. Many years. And I know this is something that I struggled with for at least half of my life, until I was at least 20. I had just incredible unworthiness, because my father, I felt he never fully saw me. And my mother was busy working, and, so I felt, one, ignored, but I reinforced the trance by making myself small, believing I was small, in an effort to hide myself from my father, who I greatly feared. He had a big heart, but he also had a lot of pain in his body. And so his manifestation came he showed up as a drill sergeant, which isn't always what a little boy wants, for a father. And so it was beautiful. I wrote this question and Justina looked at it and she said, this is something she struggled with. She struggled with throughout her life. Now, when we have unworthiness, it needs to be met with love and clarity. So the love is, a gentleness of saying, oh yes, I understand. I understand your pain. I understand why you came to this conclusion. But then the clarity is also the willingness to see, oh, that there's a beautiful child within, a beautiful innocence within. That's beyond the state of unworthiness. In order to heal, we must be compassionate towards our pain. We must validate it, honor it. But we must also see the truth. And the truth is none of us are unworthy. The truth is we are all children of God. We are all this immense, spacious awareness. And so I thought, before I go any further, I thought we might just close our eyes and just drop in a little bit more deeply. And to really feel into that which is unconditioned. So what's here that's not conditioned by mom or dad, by sister or brother, by our education or the house we grew up in, the name we were given, the gender. And we gently turn inward and discover this often overlooked aliveness, this overlooked gentle peace in our heart, this overlooked tenderness of your being. And can you begin to feel and open to that which is free, that which is naturally awake, that which is unborn? Unborn. What's unborn? It is before conditioning, before you are given a name. There is something here. And that something is awake and aware. That something is beyond a body. So can you pause here? Unhook from the sense of the body. Unhook from being the thinker, thinking all those thoughts. Who does all that thinking? And be that which is beyond thinking, that which witnesses the thinking. Can you breathe into your empty, formless nature? And smile, smile at the recognition that what you are is beyond this body, beyond this mind, beyond this pain. Can you smile at what you are? And just rest here for a couple breaths. Just breathing in and breathing out. And say, I am not in a trance, for I know myself. I live in reality. I see that I am good. I feel and experience the radiance, the goodness, the tenderness of my heart. Yes. I know that what I am is good because I experience it right now. This unborn beauty, freedom. This is what I am. And so smiling at this recognition, smiling at what I am. And so, do you, Constance, do you know that you are a child of God? Do you know this? Do you know this? How about you, Lisa? Do you know that you were made in the image and likeness of God? You, Wesley, do you know the tenderness, the innocence, the beauty of your heart beyond suffering, beyond pain? What about you, John? Do you know the depth of your being? That it's good, it's pure, it's holy. And so this is the purpose of satsang, is to go inward, to connect with the truth. The truth. The truth of your being. Do you, Marianne, know you are a bright light? Bright light. Bright light. And so we're smiling at this recognition. And so anyways, you're welcome to open your eyes if you like, or you keep them closed. Whatever feels good to you. But I welcome you here into the beauty, the spaciousness, the peace of this moment. If we want to be free, we have to learn how to live in our unborn nature. If you want to live in samsara, you just jump into the stream of your conditioned nature, who you think you are, your name, your form, your gender, your identity. Jump in there and be the character and play it well. Play your role well. But you don't have to. You don't have to. And so, I think in this week's inquiry question, I can't remember what it was. I just posted it a little bit ago on the Facebook wall. But I think it was something like, are you awake to what you are? Beyond body, beyond mind. If you're not awake to this, what are you awake to? What are you awake to? Are you just a character in a play? Or are you awake to the fact that you are God? You are an angel in human form. tell you, being an angel is much easier than being human, being that character. So anyways, I have a bunch of questions here and I'll jump into them. And it looks like our friend Richard has a question, but I say this every week. You know, the rest of you are welcome to ask a question beyond email. You can talk to me. I don't bite. But the first question that I have here comes from Daniel. Daniel writes, Craig, can you explain what you mean in your videos when you say, this or that action creates karma? Can you explain what karma is, how we create it, and on the basis of what you can discriminate actions? It looks like sometimes the same action can be considered a different way by different people. Yeah. So the most basic definition of karma is simply, it's just like a movement. It's a movement. And it's kind of like, you know, we'll make it fun here. If we were all astronauts and we had, you know, we found a little meteor floating through space, an asteroid, or whatever you call it, you know, a little rock. And, you know, if I'm floating around in space and if I just take that rock and I just throw it, it's just going to continue just floating through space. And in a sense, that's what all of our actions are like. You know, they have this trajectory to them. And so when you're kind, there tends to be more kindness that shows up in your life. If you have lots of angry thoughts, it just tends to continue in that way. It's like if I scream, that scream's just going to go out and spread across space until it's acted upon by a different force, till it's swallowed up by a black hole or something. And so, you know, karma, it's neither good nor bad, but often when people use it, it often refers to, you know, creating suffering. And so just a great question to inquire into is which of my actions create suffering? Sometimes it's simply believing thoughts. Like I have a good friend, and he's a young guy, he's a bright guy, he's got his whole life ahead of him. And it seems like every time I speak to him, he finds a way to blame himself, judge himself, attack himself, make himself small, make himself the worst guy on planet Earth. And I look at him saying, like, where's all these thoughts coming from? Like he's creating the karma of self-loathing, self-hatred, unworthiness. Now his parents may have started the ball rolling by not treating him with love and respect and dignity. But at some point he agreed with it. And as an adult, as beings who are awake on the spiritual path, when you agree with a thought that creates suffering and perpetuates suffering, well, you'll suffer, and those around you will probably suffer as well. And so when I say this or that action creates karma, that's what I mean. It means it's creating suffering. It's creating suffering. But like Daniel writes, this can be subjective too. You know, the same action can be considered a different way by different people. I want to be careful with that. Yeah, anyone can look at something and see a different perspective there. But we want to be in the perspective of truth, you know, as close to the absolute as we can be. And by that, I mean in alignment with God's truth, God's intelligence, God's will. And so, you know, I can say this, that, you know, all fighting is bad. It's wrong. It's violent. Causes karma. But of course, that's not true. I can think of a time when I was in middle school and there was lots of kids on the playground and they were bullying me. And I stood up for myself. And I knocked the crap out of, you know, 2 or 3 of them. And then they stopped bullying me. And did this create negative karma? No, it actually created positive karma for both of us. It taught me to value myself. And it actually taught these bullies who were picking on me to value me too, and to put their own behavior in check. In check. So it's not like all violence is bad. But if there's meaningless violence, if we're being a bully just out of habit, yeah, that's going to create karma. But when you stand up for yourself, does that create karma? Not negative karma, it creates positive karma. And so the question is, well, how do we discern? How do we discern the truth? Now, if you think about the truth, we can play the philosophy game. And, you know, when I was a freshman in college, I had a philosophy professor, and he taught us about these, about the art of sophistry. You know, the sophist, however you say it. In ancient Greece, basically they could argue any point. You know, it's like being a lawyer. You can argue a point either way, but it doesn't mean it's the truth. But when you come in your heart, you know if it's the right thing to stand up for yourself or to turn the other cheek. It's not always wise to turn the other cheek. If you have unworthiness issues and you continue to turn the other cheek, you're going to create more suffering for yourself, and you won't be the person God wants you to be. Sometimes the greatest thing you can do is give someone a kick in the shin. And it's a big step forward. And so we have to look at these things, but we have to look from the innocence and the truthfulness of our heart. We can't look from our emotional heart because, excuse me, in our emotional heart, if someone's picking on us, it seems like the right thing to do is to fight back. But, you know, sometimes the appropriate thing to do is to be a punching bag. But if it's gone on for years and years, the appropriate thing to do is probably to stand up for yourself. And so, Daniel, the question always comes back to discernment with karma. And you ask your heart, and ask the intuitive intelligence of your heart. If you cannot find that in the moment, you know, just a good thing to ask is, what's going to create the least amount of pain and suffering for everyone? For everyone. And that's a compassionate question to ask. But sometimes the truth is you need to put yourself first. Sometimes it's you need to put yourself last or somewhere in the middle. But only your heart can tell you that. I can't tell you. And so it's a beautiful question. And, you know, one of the things that I've seen in regards to karma is people can get very superstitious and then get really strange, you know, about it. Say, well, if you step on a worm, that means you're going to come back in your next lifetime as a worm. And it's not, that's not really how it works. You know, that's kind of an archaic understanding of karma. More karma is simply your trajectory on the path. Where are you at? Where are you headed? And are you living in alignment with higher truths or lower truths? The reason the world is so deeply divided is because so many of us are plugged into and are supporting the karma of division, of blue versus red or black versus white, or you know, my party versus your party or whatever it is, liberal versus conservative. And the more you plug into that, the more you just fall into your identity along, you know, the party line, the greater the karmic grooves you will create for yourself and for the collective. And for the collective. You know, oftentimes people who ask me about karma, if I look at, you know, all the people I've met with over the years, oftentimes their internal critic is looking for a way to blame or judge themselves for something they did that was less than holy in the past. And so please, you know, the teachings on karma aren't meant as a tool for judgment, but rather it's meant for a tool for self-reflection of just what kind of life do I want to live? How am I living? These are great questions. How am I speaking? How am I treating the other human beings and the plant and the animal species, the oceans, the rivers here on planet Earth? How am I treating this world? How am I treating it? You know, there's a reason that global warming is happening. There's a reason it's 100 degrees, you know, at 9,000 feet here in Colorado. There's a reason. Because we've neglected our planet. That's one karma we all share. And the beautiful thing about karma is it invites us to face reality, to look and see, look how you're living. Reflect on it. Change your behavior. Do something different so there's less suffering for all of us. It's a beautiful question, but please don't use this as a reason to blame or judge yourself. Let's see here. So Richard, you with us? Can you unmute? There you are. Hi, Richard.
Hey. Hey there, Craig. Hey, everyone. Good to be here. Good to be here. Craig, I firstly just wanted to say thank you so much. Your recent videos have been hugely beneficial and are a little different than kind of what you've put out. And I like that. It's fresh and it's helpful.
Yeah. Good.
I just wanted to give that feedback. I was talking to a Sangha member recently who meets with you fairly often. And he was like really expounding your praises. And he's like, well, Craig isn't Jesus. And then he kind of smiled like, but he kind of is. And
don't even say that.
Yeah, I know. But you shine a lot of light. And I, just want to reflect that back because I think we all benefit from it. So I didn't post on the inquiry or the meditation. So I'm just calling myself out for that, holding myself accountable.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, it's no worries. I'm not, no excuses. I'm not going to fall into a guilt and shame spiral.
Yeah.
Damn, that needs to happen. So here I am just kind of saying it real quick. So to my question, listen, it's about awakening and it's more results driven than anything. Let's assume that somebody has a non-dual view and they've taken in and internalized that very deeply. So they get it. I get that I'm the truth. I get that it's about removing obstacles and not about becoming something that I'm not already. But I'm also mature enough to understand, but I'm not there yet in relative time. I haven't made that fundamental shift. Let's also assume that somebody has a karmic predisposition towards actually waking up in this lifetime.
Okay.
What's the difference that makes the difference? I want to come down to like fundamentals in regards to waking up. So that is my question today. Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, for me, so much of it comes down to love. Do you love you? Do you love you? And have you forgiven yourself for being human? For having a human body, a human form, a human ego? Do you love you? You know, you said that word, you know, I know it has something to do with removing obstacles. And, you know what, I'd invite everyone to get the idea of obstacle out of their mind. And, you know, just to look at themselves and any pain within their body the same way you look at a child. If a child's suffering, you get down on the level of the child, you meet them with love. This is what heals, this is what opens, this is what, if we're going to use yogic language here, clears or removes obstacles, is love. And it's something that, you know, modern non-dual teachings is often overlooked. And my God, is it heartbreaking to see, you know, that people ignore love. It's like, love is the path. It makes the path so much easier. When we love ourselves, when we're gentle with ourselves, when we're kind to ourselves. And when the rubber meets the road, when things are difficult on the path, we need love. It's that which heals. It's the nectar. It's that which nurtures us. I mean, it is our very essence. And so, you know, of course, there's clarity. Will help to wake you up in the beginning. And then there's love, and then there's strength. And the bottom line is we need all three. Without all three, we just tend to collapse back into egoic identification. And the beautiful thing about even collapsing into egoic identification is there's an intelligence to it. Like there's an inherent intelligence in obstacles. There's an inherent intelligence in samsara. Like when you fall on your face, it hurts. It feels rotten. And the thing that a lot of people do in that moment is they respond with self-judgment, which is not the way forward. You know, I said, like I took these two little girls to the park today, one was 5 and the other was 6. And they were doing the monkey bars, and it was actually pretty high monkey bars. And one of the little girls told me that, you know, not my daughter, the other one, told me, you know, I fell off the monkey bars and I hit the ground and it rattled my brain and I started to see things. I said, oh, you know, I bet that hurt. You know, let me hold you. Like, let me hold you on the monkey bars. She said, yeah, come here and hold me so I can do the monkey bars. And see, this is love. When we fall, love doesn't judge us and say, you're bad, you're wrong, you're foolish. Love says, yeah, let's try again. Let's get a little bit of help. Let's open ourselves to the presence of God, to the presence of something greater. And this world, it's a dark world. It's a confusing world. It's a painful world. It's a violent world. Every direction you turn is a good place to become, you know, hooked again. It's, you know, snared again by life, by the craziness, the difficulty of it. And love is the gentleness and the compassion that helps us, you know, to become, you know, unsnared, to become to step back on the path again. And what you'll find is through the doorway of love, the human self and the awakened self, that doorway starts to melt. And these two seemingly worlds begin to implode into each other. And that's a really beautiful thing. Because as the awakening matures through love, you begin to realize it's impossible not to be awake, impossible not to be free, even if you fall on your face. And that's a paradox. That's a paradox. And there's a real shift that happens, through this softening with love. It's like you're just being tenderized until you just melt. Now here in Colorado where it's hot, I guess it's really hot in probably a lot of this hemisphere. In the middle of summer, you put an ice cube in a glass of water, and eventually those two just become one. They become one. And so love, more love. Do you love your human self? The more you love your human self, the more quickly you will awaken. The more you hate your human self and you try to get rid of your human self and you do the guilt and blame type of thing, you just prolong it. Because as soon as you go into any type of attack of your human self, and you create two yous, actually maybe even three yous. There's the judge attacking the human, and then there's the awakened one who's ignored. And what I'd rather we all do is just step into our heart and smile and say, oh, the human made a mistake. But this is a world of growth, and so mistakes are simply just steps here on planet Earth. Most of our steps are mistakes. We step one way and then another. And the more you can forgive yourself for being human, the quicker everything goes. Everything goes. And so that's a big deal. Love's a big deal. And then the willingness to claim your divinity is another thing that a lot of people don't do. They are afraid of what they are. Like you were commenting that someone called me Jesus or something. And that's the invitation here, is for you to become Christ-like. Now I can say, with real clear humility, that if you followed me around all day, you'd probably just see a fool. My wife says, all you do is walk in circles all day. You just walk in circles. And it's true. A lot of the day I'm walking in circles. I'll go and I'll start doing some dishes, and then, I'll look down at my little dog Doodles, and he'll say, let's go on a walk, and I'll take him for a walk, and I'll come back and I'll think about the dishes, and then, my daughter will say, Daddy, can you build me a bunk bed? And I'll say, okay, all right, let's go to Home Depot. We're gonna build you a bunk bed. And so I get out the power tools, and I'm tripping over this and that, but just the willingness, to forgive your human form, to love your human form. But then also to acknowledge there is something extraordinary here. Something immensely extraordinary. And you have to own that. You have to own it throughout the day. You can't just let, what I'll call like the bumbling human, that's Craig. You can't let him lead the way, because it'll just look like some, spaghetti, walking around in circles, a dog chasing its tail. You can't let the dog lead you. You have to let the inner divinity lead you. And you have to own it. You have to be vigilant. Last night, my friend Bryce, we met out in the middle of the street, and we were just looking up at the Milky Way. And it's like, my God, what are you when you're out in the middle of the night just looking up at the Milky Way? And so it's the willingness to investigate this, to know this, to claim what you are. And to say, yeah, that's me. That hugeness, that emptiness, that radiance, that Christ-like oneness, unity. This is who I am. And God needs us to claim our divinity. God needs us. You know, right now we have Joe Biden claiming his power. Donald Trump, he certainly has claimed his. You know, Mitch McConnell's claimed his power. I mean, people claim their power in such strange, bizarre, egotistical ways, manipulating one way or another. But God needs you to claim your divinity and live your truth and be your truth, express your truth. God needs this. I mean, our planet will literally burn in hell, literally burn in hell, if we do not all wake up to the truth that we are and start living this. I mean, our planet is literally on fire. Like this crazy explosion that happened in Beirut. Just such immense, unnecessary suffering. My wife, she showed me this picture of this lady playing a piano in her house, and the house had no windows. It was just like destroyed. It's like the immense suffering there. But she said, I'm going to stand in my divinity, despite the hell that has been shown to me. And so, Richard, it comes down to love, and it comes down to you taking your power back. And so I'll harass you a little bit and say, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. That's what grounds the truth. That's what grounds the truth. When you say you're going to do something, but you don't do it, the ego, it gets to, live in its trance. And its trance is, I'm the one empowered. And so the ego says, well, I'd like another cookie, or I'll do a little bit of this, or I'll hop on Instagram, or I'll go over here, or go over there, or do whatever, whatever it does. The beautiful thing I love about when you study the Enneagram, you can look at how, like the machinery, the mechanics of your particular ego. You can map it out. You see, oh, this is how this engine works. This is how it operates. This is what it chases after. This is what it, is afraid of, or whatever. And in order to get your power back, we have to say no to those games. And I can say this, that on the path, if you meditate enough, if you meet with the teachers, hell, if you hang out on YouTube long enough, with different spiritual teachers, you might just all of a sudden just step into a presence of non-dual awakening, because that's what they are transmitting. But if you want this to be your truth, you have to be connected to your power. You have to be connected to your power. Otherwise, it will just come and go. Just like when I watch hockey, the hockey playoffs, I get excited about a particular team. But then after the game, I could care less about those boys and what they're doing. It just comes. I get the transmission of their intensity. But then after the game, it's quickly disappears. You know, quickly just because that's not my truth. It's not my truth to be a 22-year-old hockey star. It's not my truth right now. So anyways, stand in your truth, live your truth, embody your truth. Yeah, good to see you, Richard. Yeah. Let's see what else is popping up here. Kyle saying hi. Hi, Kyle. Hi, Justina. Hi, Craig. In our meditations, I have been sensing the energy of the earth ascending through my legs and my root chakra. Can you speak about how the earth and our root chakra are connected in all realms? Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so let me I'll speak about this question on a couple different levels. So your body is one with this world. And so say when me and Bryce are outside and we're looking at the Milky Way, you know, we are experiencing the oneness with the transcendent, vast, ever-expanding, radiant universe. Just the hugeness of the universe. And so we can really feel that. When you open to your root chakra, oftentimes you feel a real sense of power, a sense of just boom. You know, one of the ways that my teacher described it is a mountain of emptiness. It's like a solid emptiness. Doesn't even make sense, but when you feel into that, you realize it's this feeling that goes down and it descends into the solidity of the earth. It's powerful. And so if you're opening to the intelligence of your root chakra, that's what you're opening to. Like the oneness on the level, say, of physicality. On the level of physicality. And it has a unique feeling to it. Whereas oneness, you know, up here in the transcendent, it's very empty. It feels like there's no physicality to it. There's just nothingness there. But in regards to this energy that's coming up from the earth, that is the energy of the earth waking up, matter waking up to itself, in you, as you. And so one of the great dreams of the mystic and saint, Sri Aurobindo, was not only for the individual to wake up, but for the collective to wake up, for matter itself to wake up and to realize its own divinity. And so during our Wednesday meditations, I'm inviting a descent of grace from above. That's heaven coming into you and bringing a higher mind, a higher consciousness. But we're also inviting matter itself to wake up, like the body to wake up, you know, the cells to wake up. This is something that hasn't been talked about before Aurobindo. Something quite profound. And if we want this world to change, to literally transform, the transformation has to be complete. It has to be through in and throughout, down into the physicality. Because right now, what's stored in the physical body is the fight or flight response, and that's the very thing that builds bombs and destroys villages and, you know, shoots a young black man prematurely, is that fight or flight response. And that's the thing that kills, that destroys, that chokes. And that has to change here on planet Earth. If we want our world, our whole world, to live in a sane way, we have to have this fight or flight response, which is stored in the cells, to evolve. And so this energy of inviting the earth to wake up in you as you is we're inviting the consciousness of the earth, the consciousness of nature itself, which has this deep program of fight or flight, to begin to change, to begin to transform into something greater. You know, what if our choice was to love or to love? Not to go into fight or flight, but to love or to love. This is what we're inviting. And so, because you are one with the earth, you, your individuality is inviting the matter of your being to wake up, the matter of the earth to wake up, and to transform into something greater. Within everything is the seed of God consciousness, even in a rock, even a little stone. There's the intelligence of spiritual awakening. It's not just in your soul, it's in everything. And so when I'm calling forth this energies of the earth, the ascending energy, we're inviting that seed of life to wake up, to express itself. And so this could be a new time, a new day, for something greater to come forward. Okay, I better move along because there's a lot of questions here. Craig, is there a way I can get a sense of that goodness you point out that is beyond my mind and body? How could I know it began before my birth? It's not essential that you know it before your birth. The reason we point to it before birth is because we want to point to a place before conditioning. Now, Andrew, if you ever hung out with, a little baby, like when a baby comes into the world, there's no original sin on a baby. Like whatever Catholic doctrine got really confused. I think it was St. Augustine who confused that one. When a baby comes into the world, they are literally radiating light. I've said this often, but if you ever get a chance to hold a newborn, if you place your hand right above their head, you'll feel the stream of light just pouring out of the top of their crown chakra. It's beautiful. It's immense. I mean, that's why old ladies go crazy to go hold the little baby, These grandmas go crazy because they're getting in touch with that divinity that they once remembered when they held their children. And so there's a purity there. And Andrew, one of the ways, instead of thinking about going back, before birth, what I'm going to invite you to do is just pick something you love. Like if you have kids, if you have a little dog, if you have a little kitty cat, how I could say this, we found a little frog in our yard today. My daughter found it. She was so excited. So we caught this little frog, and you look at the eyes of this frog, and you see God looking back at you. And so, Andrew, I'm going to invite you to play a game here. You can go look in a mirror, or you can get out your nifty iPhone and just see a picture of yourself, like pull it up, to your video. And look in the mirror and just see your face and look directly into your eyes. Directly into your eyes and notice this radiance. Unconditioned radiance pouring out of your eyes. And just be with that. That radiance is your goodness. And I'm going to say something horrific now. So, all the children in the room, you can, close your ears. But I want you all to imagine this beautiful toad, one of God's creatures. I want you to imagine me being like an old, angry, grumpy man wearing some big boots. And I say, I hate toads. And I just go and stomp on that toad. Immediately, you feel your heart chakra close. And you're like, that's wrong. You know it's wrong. The reason you know that that behavior would be wrong is because there's an innate goodness in your heart. So an innate goodness knows when you see one of God's creatures, you look at it with awe, with love. You don't go stomp on it. You don't go kill a toad. I'm sorry I had to say that, but I just want to use it just as a metaphor of we all know good from bad, right from wrong, up from down. That's your innate goodness. It's inherent within you. Like if you saw me in the park and I went up and I slapped my daughter, you'd be like, that's wrong. Don't do that. Hey guy, stop. Stop. Stop it. Knock it off. That's the intelligence of your heart. That's your innate goodness. And I'm just using a counter example, an example of negativity, to show you that this goodness is already here. And one of the ways to get in touch with your heart, besides looking in the mirror, is just laying in bed, getting yourself completely comfortable in Shavasana. And just taking both hands and just putting it on your heart and breathing in and breathing out. And noticing this gentle warmth beneath your hands. This just quiet, tender goodness. And so anyways, look at Denny. Denny is telling me, he says he's on the road to Yosemite right now. Denny, have a wonderful time in Yosemite. So Denny just loves getting out in nature. And see, that's the goodness of his heart. Telling him, be outside. Be in this expanded reality. Get away from the city. So his innate goodness leads him out into nature. Same place my heart leads me. To the beauty of this world. Here's a question. Hi, Craig. My girlfriend has complex PTSD and has been disassociating sometimes. Some advice she's been given has been not to meditate, as sometimes she gets a negative reaction to sometime after meditation. But I also see that it's important for her to stay on the path, and that we're still making progress, meditating together. Okay, yeah, this question is kind of long, but I'll just go into it because this is a common question I get. So there are some forms of meditation that could help you disassociate from life and could be really problematic if you have intense trauma or PTSD. But that's not the type of meditation that I teach. The type of meditation I teach is more an embodied practice. So it's a practice where you're breathing and feeling into your heart. So if you have lots of trauma and you simply go into the vast spacious awareness and you're gently or subtly ignoring your trauma, it could be a form of dissociation. It could reinforce this idea or potential to disassociate. But it's important, if you have pain in your body, to invoke this quality that I was speaking to Richard about, this quality of love. So anytime we meditate, we want to have a quality of peace, a connection to love, and a connection to strength. When you're connected to love and strength, it becomes impossible to disassociate. If you're just connected to peace or spaciousness or freedom, you could spend a couple decades disassociating. And then the PTSD eventually, or the trauma eventually will revolt. And by that, I mean neurotic behavior will come forward in your outward life, which will force you eventually to face whatever it is you're avoiding in meditation. It's the beautiful thing about pain is eventually you have to face it. You know, I recently made this video, Peter, I think it's called Facing Everything. It's just a short video, about this very practice of just facing what's within you. So any good meditation practice should actively be acknowledging what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. I mean, in the way I teach, if you're not feeling and experiencing what's here, in you, in your form, it becomes very dangerous. Because like you were describing, you can have negative effects. And so just to include the body, that's the basic teaching here, is to include the body. And also, of course, if your girlfriend or your partner, if they have a lot of PTSD, it's important they get support. It's important they talk to somebody, because that will help them get the tools to learn how to face it more fully. But the basic teaching is breathe, feel, experience, let go. Whatever it is, breathe, feel, experience, let go. Whether it feels like hell or feels like bliss, you breathe, you feel, you experience, and you let go and see what comes. Okay. From Colleen. Hi, Craig. As an awakened person, how do I make an impossible decision? We often hear that we are not the doer. We can only surrender. It sometimes feels like making a big human decision is not surrendering. Well, that's a good question, Colleen. So in this case, the idea is to surrender to the truth. So there's two types of surrender. At least I'll just speak about two types of surrender. There's the surrendering and just letting go and kind of falling apart and just seeing what happens. It's like laying your cards on the table and just see what comes. But other times, there's a voice that comes forward in the truth of your heart, the intelligence of your heart, and it will tell you to play your cards this way. And the idea is whenever you have a big decision, a human decision, I want you just to erase that word human. Just invite your heart to lead you forward. Say, no, this is not a human decision. This is a divine decision. It's divine. And so I'm going to let the divine guide me. I want to let God lead me. I no longer think in terms of human and divine. Everything is just divine. It's just the more you surrender into your heart, that dividing line between human and divine disappears. And so, can you let go and can you trust the quiet voice of your heart? If we're thinking about the decision, like calling it an impossible decision, oftentimes there's still a human there who's seeing themselves as a victim to life, or that there's something is happening to them. But the further you walk, you see that God is in all of life. God is in the impossible. And when you see that God is in the impossible, you begin to realize God is the infinite potentiality. God is the doer. God is samsara. God is awakening. But the truth is here in it all. And the way we come into this state is through you listening to the quiet voice of your heart and letting it guide you forward, despite what the mind says. When you listen to your heart again and again and again, eventually the mind disappears, it vanishes, it wears itself out. And when you face the impossible, you surrender into faith. Sometimes we just say, this thing that my teacher used to say, let's just see what God has in store. So if you're really confused, you do what the highest is, you do what's the wisest decision, and see what God has in store. But deeper than that is you listening to the voice in your heart. The voice in your heart is literally the voice of God. And it's the true heart, not your emotional heart, and the true heart. Always need to clarify that one. And so what oftentimes God puts us in these, situations where you're between a rock and a hard place to help dissolve the walls between being human and being divine. Because what happens when you get between a rock and a hard place, when you get to an impossible decision, you see there's no way out. At some point, the mind and the emotional nature exhausts itself. And you see that it's all God. The decision is God. The consequences are God. The situation is God. The environment's God. The players are God. The character is God. It's all the intelligence of God. But sometimes we have to go through an impossible thing a couple different times. I've been through so many impossible things that finally I'm just like, okay, okay. And so anyways, I just have a couple more questions and I'll cut you all loose. Here's a good one from Connor about channeling. This will be similar to, I believe, Colleen's question. Hi, Craig. I've been trying to write recently, and I just write with no thoughts in my head, and stuff starts coming out. I love it. Stuff. The big question is what kind of stuff, Connor? But I have no say in what I write. And all this stuff starts coming out, feels really good to write, but makes no sense. I don't know what to do. I couldn't wait until September to book a session with you, so I'm just asking for help right now until we can speak again face to face. Yeah, I mean, the big thing is when you start opening these doors, is just to let it flow. But we want to let it flow with some level of discernment. And so it can feel good as we begin to awaken, just to step into vast, spacious emptiness. And when you step into this space, oftentimes there's this unconsciousness that starts to come forward, and it wants to come forward. It literally wants to vomit itself out of you so that you can feel vast, spacious emptiness throughout the body. And so in the beginning, when we start to open to this awakened state, oftentimes your dreams become really vivid, can become really wild. If you just open up and you become clear, and you can just fill up notebooks with just random thoughts, whether it's from the past, whether it's premonitions of the future, whether it's just psychic stuff emptying out, you just let it flow. Just let it flow. But eventually, if we're going to channel, if we're going to get something from it besides just emptying out random psychological stuff, and then the question comes down to discernment. And a little prayer I say if I'm going to sit down and write something is just, Lord, will you speak through me? Will you write through me? Will you act through me? Let it flow. And give myself permission to be blank, which is where I normally am, is blank. And then see what comes and see what comes. And it will. Something divine will come. But if you have a lot of ego, something divine will come and it will be filtered through ego. Or you'll have something really divine and some ego stuff that'll pop in there that will say, I'm the Messiah, I'm Jesus. And, it'll start to get carried away with its own, grandiosity or whatever. I've had a lot of people come to me thinking they're Jesus, thinking they're the Messiah, because they opened the door to channeling. So be careful, but also be humble and just let it flow and see. You'll know if it's something good. And like you said, sometimes it feels good just to be in that flow and let it flow. And sometimes the words are just nonsense, but the fact that you are in the divine flow, and this emptying out process is happening, that's what feels good. The words that you write on the paper don't make a difference. If they're meant to be shared and offered as something higher, when you read it, you'll say, oh, wow, there's something good here, something true here. And a good test is if you're channeling is to put it down Pick it up in 3 weeks and see see if it's still good, or if you're just high because you were high on God. So anyways, beautiful. And keep in mind, people channel all kinds of things. I know all kinds of writers who just channel books, and it's nothing that high. It's just, you know, a story about whatever. But it feels good to be in that creative flow. And that in and of itself is beautiful, but it doesn't mean it's something of, you know, the supreme consciousness or something like that. Okay, so I think this might be the last question here. Hi, Craig. This is from Heather. She wrote a really long email, and I'll just make it real simple. And just a reminder for folks, if you want me to read your emails, don't write really long ones with 1,000 details. My brain has a hard time holding on to details. Hi, Craig. I had a powerful kundalini awakening after being involved in an emotionally chaotic situation. So she was just confused by that. So basically she got, you know, in like a little interpersonal, in between an interpersonal fight within a family. And she felt overwhelmed, and then all of a sudden had a spontaneous kundalini awakening. And her understanding was that kundalini awakening or spiritual awakening was supposed to be gentle. And she used the word fertilize our spiritual growth. But she's feeling quite overwhelmed, anxious, you know, having panic attacks, all this kind of stuff, racing thoughts. I feel like a cannon blast is hurling through me, through the tree of life, and every branch is smacking me, you know, right in my belly. Is it possible something this seismic could happen to a normal person who does not do yoga or meditate? Yeah, Heather, it's common throughout history. It's common in my practice, you know, my work week, is I meet with all kinds of people who are not spiritual, you know, quote unquote spiritual. And for one reason or another, they had an awakening. Now, sometimes an awakening is precipitated by sitting in meditation, where you unhook from your mind, you unhook from your body, and boom, you open into this vast, spacious awareness. Other times, an awakening can happen when you unhook from your mind and body because you're in a trauma state, because you experience some PTSD. It could be when you're in an overwhelming situation, a car accident. I know a lot of people have been in accidents, and then boom, you know, they just woke up all of a sudden. But they're waking up. Normally when we wake up in this way, it can be quite messy because one, we don't know what's going on. And then two, there tends to be a rush of trauma that's coming forward into the light to be healed. And it can overwhelm the nervous system. So Heather, the big thing is to get some support. And in the meantime, to get grounded, not to believe your thoughts, and learn how to self-soothe your emotions. If you have overwhelming pain or anxiety or fear, I want you to imagine there's a little girl in you, and she needs to be held, she needs to be embraced, she needs to be loved, she needs to be soothed into a state of calm again. Because when our nervous system is just overwhelmed with trauma or pain, we can't think clearly, we can't see what's happening. It's hard to function. So the quickest way to get back on your feet again is to soothe the part of you that's panicking, to soothe it. So any type of breathing exercise, any type of yoga, light, gentle hatha yoga, yin yoga is helpful. Body work, massage is helpful, chiropractics. Even just laying on the ground in shavasana, that's just laying down with your back flat. A hand on your heart and a hand on your belly, and you breathe in. This is gentle mantra, I love you, as you breathe in, and it's okay as you breathe out. Just holding that child, holding the panic, holding the one who's suffering. And you do this as long as it takes. 20 minutes, an hour, 10 hours, 10 days, as long as it takes. When you calm the nervous system down, you'll start to see the positive effects of spiritual awakening. And you'll begin to see that this was not a mistake of God. Nothing's a mistake. Nothing's a mistake. Okay. Let's see. One more here. Everyone just hold on here. So Linda's writing that she had a big awakening on a yoga retreat. Her life has been amazing since. Life totally changed. Anxiety gone. And she lived with a horrible anxiety disorder prior. Had tons of energy running up, down the spine. Always feel the same energy moving. Yeah, so anyways, well, thanks for sharing, Linda. The big thing is just to open, to breathe, to feel, to experience. And that's what Linda did. Like, you breathe, you feel, you experience, you let go, you trust. And eventually everything will sort itself out. It will all sort itself out. And that's a big part of this path, is trusting. But we want to trust in God, not trust in the movement of ego. Not trust in the movement of ego. Most people trust in ego, not in God. So anyways, so much love to each and every one of you. I thank you all for your donations and your support, showing up with your big open hearts. And yeah, just a reminder, Wednesday night meditation group, if you want to join us. Same time, details are on my website. We'd love to have you. Good night, everyone. Bye for now.